Assemble a cube in your mind. Place the cube in your mind in your hand. Place the cube in your hand in the machine. The operation continues. So, looking again at the tech tree, where we have the current setup here that is able to just create green. So I can gradually progress along through this stretch of the tree. My previous sampling of this before starting the streams, I've done replication gel before. I've done a past setup for that. I did not start to get into wood byproducts, which here in Cube Tech it's around here somewhere. This is how you get oil. Wood resin. Steamed lumber. Interesting times to follow. So for now, let's allow this to continue. Head over to a stretch of empty ground and start thinking about gel. So gel is made in a furnace. Furnace grows many ports in order to facilitate the gel. Takes steam and water in one side, it exhausts steam and water the other side. Directly opposite of its input. And then it extrudes the gel perpendicular to the steam lines. Now go get some fresh matter ingots. And start to think about plumbing. Because I should have some amount of space available between machines to have room for power connections and so forth. And like high density arrangements only happen to have to happen on the cube side of the process. Cube handling should happen rapidly, and I have some thoughts about how to further intensify cube handling procedures. But once things have left the cube, then there is room to sprawl a little bit. Otherwise, take it easy. So, gel storage. Possibly build that up to a full quartet of tanks. Very nice little tank square. That provides a lot of room to do hookups. And also make that an active pump that will drive the available liquid into the device. Just blueprinting, and then I'll figure out how to flip the whole process around. Determine what level of chaos will be necessary. And a power pole situated there is a nice spot to hook up data cable to read the current size of the gel inventory. Cube is currently refining earth metal. Understandable, though. I'm going to go ahead and slide the cube just into my pocket, actually. For prototyping purposes, let me just shake the cube until some matter ingots fall out. And then pop you in there. Get that basic material stockpiled and running. Yeah, since there's a lot of things pending. And of course I have to, on the horizon, gotta think about how I'm going to do acquiring thinking fluid. That begins and ends with the dormant cube. So we'll need somewhere where the cube is already asleep and then integrate collection into that to dream of cube. And I'm back to our drawing board here. So, there's a starting point. Gel furnace, output from gel furnace. And the complication of takes in steam, puts out smaller amount of steam that I should recycle back into the machine. Similarly, takes in some water, puts out more water, needs somewhere to exhaust that water. So like the plumbing system for the input to the boiler going to have to change in order to facilitate this. I'm getting some water recaptured from condensation that I should be putting that back into the system. Just at a glance, first step here would seem to be to pipe that back around, or I could put the pipes over here. And over up here, since that would then run underneath. This side is going to have all the arms for inserting and retrieving the cube. And that then operating on like a similar overall space budget to what I've been using for other setups, having a 2-tile alley on either side of the column. So we need water in here and steam in here. Well, water out here. It's a net producer of water. Cube still producing basic matter. And yeah, so our example of setups for providing cube input to a machine that must refresh the cube. Or at least under current design paradigms, should refresh the cube. One recovery bay. Then like a couple of power poles. Yeah, with my standard hookup of a power pole to the right of the top arm. And then, yes, that is useful as a spacer as well to like prevent the pipes from touching just a little bit. Some nice symmetry. And that provides an access point for data cable to run from the storage tank up to the control arm. Yeah, this will be subject to a few changes in the field, but for the moment, I'll drop that wind turbine. This checks out. Label this as gel. Gel furnace. Put it in the book. Now we go find it a home somewhere on the line. And all the while, the research machine rumbles on. Get the gel version of the basic research as well. Move that up the priorities a bit. Crusher, earth refinement. and back over to just doing things as they come. Alright, basic matter supply looking healthy again. I also had the wiki open earlier to look up some combinator things. But yeah, there are bit shift operators in the combinator instructions, because of course. What else would you do? And you can build a latch out of a decider and a constant, I think, working side by side. It's some pair. Either decider and constant or arithmetic and decider. Yeah, for all the multiplexing that you're going to do. Compressing data streams. The use for wood begins soon. And the boundaries of this mineral deposit are going to begin to recede, since I'm actually kind of biting into it properly now. Like, okay, so there's the size of our footprint for the gel machine. Although then the gel-based versions of the replication recipes will impose their own complications. Yeah, let me go grab some brick. Make another synthesizer for research purposes. Need to see where the fluid hookups go on that once it's assembled. Might need to spread the pieces out a bit more in response to that. Let's just see. Oh, I made another. Well, no, I have that recovery bay already. Synthesizer. There you are. Still in operation. I had reacted too soon. So, you. Gel-based replication. Takes in steam and gel, does not release any exhaust. Okay, that simplifies some things. So, doing it this way would be compatible. Bring in the steam from above on the steam line. Bring in the gel from below. I've left spaces on the ground for it. And let's see, the other gel recipe. Okay, this one does involve releasing water. That is exhaust that has to be collected and piped back into the system. Divert this down here. And we have main power hookups from on high. So, tentatively install the gel furnace right here. Right, I also need to physically pass some basic matter ingots over to catalyze the gel. Quite a few per batch. So like a priority split off of this, but then I need somewhere to fit the loading arms. I might have to drop those windmills from the layout. Or otherwise change up how the pipes are attached. Alright, so there's ingots going in. So, steam supply, water supply. Though I must create release valves. I need to back off the water supply from the steam turbine. Better plan out how I put things into it. Need more tanks and more pumps. Flare stack is present integrated. I don't know if any of the valves are present integrated into this. And yeah, overflow valve is not a difficult thing to orchestrate. I have ways to destroy water and destroy steam. So, pull up the entire water supply for the moment. Put in a storage tank. Maybe? Think about how I want to do this. Okay, putting water into the power system is always good. Then I have a breakout here. That kind of zoops out of the immediate water handling zone. And then I will control things over there. Or no, because of the... I want excess water from the industry side of things to be able to backflow into this storage tank. So the control system goes here. Breakout pipe goes up there. And then the control wire is just if water less than 20,000. Okay, basic water supply established. Yeah, water level accumulates if the boiler is off. And reduces when the boiler is on. So now a pipeline, which I need some gravel to help put together. And some additional belt tunnel probably when I create other hookup points along that line. Or do I? Yes, water hookup goes here. And it is. Surplus water needs to be able to backflow into the water system to drive the boiler. But for this purpose, that will work. Water is now available for the replication gel. Now for the steam hookup. This part of things, I want the industrial steam to favor using recycled steam as much as possible and only top itself off when needed. That is the thing to work toward. But I also want steam for power to always have priority. So I am kind of overcomplicating things. Let's make the easier connection for now. And then see how things go otherwise. Cube has arrived. Need to adjust these filters. So you are looking for replication gel is less than, how large is a batch of this? 4,000 at a time. And when replication gel is over 10,000, cube will be released back into the wild. Okay, those ones were already wired up. So pass the cable back to gel storage. Hook up the steam control arm for cube ejection. Okay, actually, the spacing here feels about right. This is where I can create the flow control setup. When local steam supply is less than 10,000, bring in fresh steam. Alright, steam connection established. Also, throw some local power onto that so that it can run on its own. Have our first batch of gel. Alright, so next step from there, now that I have the replication gel, is to switch the basic matter producer over to gel mode. I have to perform the necessary plumbing to make that happen. Scoop up all the material they have. Alright, replication gel connected. Steam. Which should come from inside our industrial steam system here. Do a little bypass here. Drop down, pop up. Wiggle around accordingly. When this switches to steam, that might also be the beginning of something. I guess I can go ahead and preemptively set that to gel mode. That is a promise to be made. So... that on basic chip. There. That is now ready to receive the cube. 1,000 ingots per cycle. A new era. Yeah, so let's just go ahead and raise the bar for how much regular matter I want stockpiled to a lot. Much even fits in one of these crates. It's 100 per tile. These are 20 tiles. It's a 2,000 per box. We got a 12,000 point buffer there. Yeah, I want a lot of material. See, without stack arms, it takes so long to even unload this thing. But the cube could be elsewhere. The true power of cube technology. Alright, so now if I pipe that steam over in some way. Or now for this, let's just take a fresh steam source because, yeah, that is enough reach to get over to the other side entirely. Unthinkable abundance of matter. Okay, the downside of dropping in a fresh connection here is that means I'm not taking advantage of the vent. That's not also not a problem because these don't create any exhaust. So actually, yeah, let me just cut that entirely. This should just receive directly from the power line. Yes, there's steam in that side. Now I need to provide gel to the other side. will mean interrupting this belt. And bringing over more gravel. Going to need another opening in the gel pipe here at some point. And the water backflow is not currently working. Turn the tolerance on that one down. Water must be below 10,000. Need to run the boiler, probably. There we go. Now this is ready to operate again when the cube returns. And again, illustrative of the power of the new materials here. 4,000 gel per cycle of that furnace. Of which 1/10 of that goes into making 1,000 basic matter. This is only 200 per cycle for the improved dimensional widgets. And then there are other recipes waiting to be enhanced. Oh, the replication also takes calcium. Calcium and water. Good stuff. I guess at this point I should make some basic construction material production setups. Start using those to have material on hand. Re-roll more production capacity. Could set up a main bus, a nice compact, simplified main bus. Okay, the gel fermenter does need to be willing to yield control of the cube. Drop that to 8,000 as acceptable for release. There needs to be back and forth of making gel and then also making matter ingots to go into the gel. Implied eventual space for some sort of smarter cube handling system. Or cube circuitry will be able to look at a set of different inventory things and then calculate whether or not cube is necessary. Evaluate your level of cube priority using a series of metrics. Alright, green research is back. For our slow and steady progress on various devices. Looked ahead enough to see construction bots are still waiting for us here in green tech. Logistic bots may be out there. Like I could just check by looking at the filter lists and the circuit inventory. Well, no, filters get properly limited to things known to exist. Combinators deal entirely in theory. Car will be available at Green Tech. I have never used the Spider Bot. That's a base game piece of technology that came out a while ago. They're automatable, non-rail vehicles. One can remotely operate the Spider. Direct it to things. Larger liquid storage tanks is good to see. Larger storage boxes. Even longer. Okay, long filter arm. Maybe even longer than basic long arm. They added a word. Fast filter, stack filter. Maybe it's just long filter, which long filter is still a useful tool. Small electric pole is still there. It may be a matter of they didn't override all of the base game technologies. Yeah, railways. Looking forward to see the logistics robot exists. And logistics storage boxes exist. But those could be residue. The cube may or may not reveal that knowledge to us. Well, for now. Carry on. The basic belt is made of motors and matter. Brusher over there, made of motors and metal. Let's make sand, let's us make glass. Things for later. And the basic motor is made of matter and pipes. And the pipes are themselves made of matter. So a conveyor belt machine. An engine machine. Which in turn wants a pipe machine, and all have a common need for basic matter. Fair point. Briefly going back into world of inventory, not yet known. Logistics bot and other logistics bot. Maybe one of these is the modded version and the other is the base game. They're both flagged as ULTRACUBE, so they seem to be part of ULTRACUBE. This one uses less power. Best effort. A robot can only do its best. Yeah, so just provide matter here and then pass through. And if I wanted tunnels, that just add more material to basic belt. If I want splitters, then I need to incorporate circuits and make more motors. A disassemble, chained with a reassemble. Bring this over here. Force power hookup. Belt maker. One important piece of time saving. Alright, so this earth refining. That is for extracting calcium primarily, but it also provides the upgraded metal furnace recipe of no, put even more in there. Just stack it higher. And by making more belts, I can start to think about a bus. Cube is over at the widget replicator. Which actually doesn't have its output signal wired up. Hold on. Or... no, this has water exhaust that I didn't account for. I missed seeing that. Well. Hold on. Time to adjust. Bring that back here. That I can backflow with the rest of this water exhaust. Need to run the boiler though. On your way. That will free up the clog in the water system. Right, that's my reason to build lamps. I can use them as indicators for circuit situations. All sorts of things I just normally don't do in the base game. Overall steam levels staying pretty good. I could drop a pump in here. Or no, because this is also letting water slosh over when it's needed. That pump will find a home somewhere. Plenty of fluids left to operate on. You might want to give these devices more personal space for even greater throughput loading and unloading. Gel implementation has shown some of the limits of this level of crowding. And so as well, another thing I have considered with our overall cube handling meta. So right now I have all of this length of cube handling ribbon, putting the cube in front of the physical location of each object, which is a fine start. But consider the case of this machine does not want the cube. Here's all this extra latency before the cube is put in front of the next hand that decides whether or not it wants the cube. Getting multiplied out each time, and increasing the amount of lag before the cube gets to cycle back to the start of the cube bus. So, considering instead prototyping. Yeah, gotta be mindful of your rates of scaling. Is this geometric cube? Can we get polynomial cube? Yeah, so with just basic arm and long arm, I can't double dip on accessing one side of one belt. But for a future of the cube highway, considering basics of conveyor belt geometry being each square had to come from somewhere and go to somewhere. There should be two arms sitting next to each tile, ideally, of the cube belt with a destination that they can then send things off to. Then maybe the occasional gap where cube returns take place after a thing has been handled. Maybe one-to-one. Cube leaves the main bus, cube returns to the main bus. There would still be latency involved in, like, delivering the cube to and from those devices. It would be an increase in time for read and write to cube RAM. But it might be made up for in the reduced overall cycle time. So, like, to example, if I were to refactor our basic setup here, it's all complicated by the fact that they need the straightaways to have the reflexes to grab the cube sometimes. (400 degrees per second), 800 degrees per second, 800 degrees per second. Fast arms are both the same speed. It's an interesting problem. So much of the dynamics of how belt is usually handled just kind of assumes a continuous stream of many objects. Because you're operating factory at volume. Then you create a puzzle like the cube. I make sure to put the cube on the outer lane of these little loops. Would that slow it down enough to let an arm on the corner grab it properly? Like, it still becomes a 6-point setup, because otherwise it would jump back to the inner lane the moment that it comes around here. Like, if I were doing that, then it would be outer lane for one go, and then become inner lane. Rapidly cycle around there. But if instead... and then that as the emergency eject, which now has priority by its positioning over the other stuff. Which, okay, the concept of the return, the express return lane is important enough to keep this one-sided. But still simplified the junction for interacting with the cube bus. Potentially made it a little shorter. So I would have to hook power to this and then, like, throw a test object onto there and see how it behaves. See if an arm can grab it. Yeah, just to, like, simulate some positions here. In this time, 200 belt have already been assembled. Let's take that up to 500. Extrusions of abundant matter. $6,000. Yeah, 5,000 is acceptable. Keep the cube circulating. Other machines do need it. So... also leaves a convenient spot to pop in the power line / data cables. Large electric pole starts to need real wire made of metal. Basic power poles just made of wood. Convey electricity by vibration. Okay, confirmed. That was able to, steal an object off of the line as long as it's at full power. And likewise, that is fast enough to intercept. So this is looking good. Not holding an extra revitalizer. That can kind of sit there being a proxy for it. And let's see the total width of one of my big units. The point of width that I am saving by moving things back a bit. Got options for how that's going to work out. I have a synthesizer in my pocket, and it's the same size as the furnace. I can throw this down here directly. Yes, this is good, because then there's available space here for plumbing. Like, that's where a cube agitator would go if it's needed for the module. And by having its leg there, now there's room on each side for a pipe to ground to access this plumbing port. And then that would just place back out onto the, well. I would want to unload it in such a way that it puts things back on the outer ring. Can I do that from here? Grab some fresh thinking matter. So, like, if I put an arm here, where does this rock land? On the inner belt, where it is too quick. That's a problem. Now the eject arm cannot operate on that. Also, this unloading arm would put things onto the inner line as well. But since long arm is fast enough to do this, there's such a thing as long filter arm, but also I can just use regular filter arm. I move the whole apparatus down a step. Now the cube revitalizer is there. It unloads like that. And the cube loader goes here. Yes. Then like another power pole there for grid arrangement purposes. Those are made of basic matter. I should just have those getting prefabricated in a big way. And I can also get the tunnel building machine set up. There we go. Yeah, this is starting to look good. So this arm ends up in one of the paths for putting in steam, except a direct hookup could also jump quite a ways out without causing any problems. Oh wait, this is one tile off of that belt. Never mind. Fix that up good. Do like this as a cube handling setup. Filter arms use slightly more power when active, but don't use more power when idle. Mass production of inserters is a thing to do. Just thinking if I could adjust this at all. Slide this forward. Or like if I mirrored the whole thing vertically, because that's another level of mechanical antics. Maybe there's some manner of specific rules for how arms prioritize lanes by default. Right, and the arm is here to place there. What's it look like if I put another of these rotated around? Otherwise crunched in together. Like the goal of this architecturally is that I want to have all the access points for the cube closer together. Instead of this stretch of belt being dead space. Should be the connection point for the next machine. Though that creates its own problems. For the idea of interacting with the return line. It's a handsome apparatus. It's got that going for it for now. Could phase the wind turbines out of there. They do fit more elegantly into all of the fluid pumping setups. Hmm. Get everything set up for replication. Or I could do more to rethink how I'm operating the cube. Should always be looking for ways to redefine interactions with the cube. Oh, hold on, that also makes things one-to-one for metal processing, whereas here we have 2-to-1. So that's very important to get high-density furnace. to get high density furnace second recipe. Another 120 chips. Should be mostly paid for. Maybe I just get rid of this short loop part of the design. Have every machine yield the cube back to the bus by default instead of trying to latch onto it. Phase of a Factorio run where you get dangerously close to just building a computer. I have a signal bus where things can send up the cube request signal that ejects the cube from other tasks. Create an assembly language of machine code. Where I've done the bones of that, with everything having this this arm that detects when steam is low. If I had those listen for a generic signal and had low steam pressure be one of many things that calls out for cube return. Otherwise, the thing would be to also start rolling out the flow charts here. Building modules that complete a specific task in terms of cube cycling. That leads in the direction of what we would even use trains for in this mod. To create a series of little isolated hardware devices. Show up, give them the cube. They do something, and then hand you back the cube and the results. The main bus is a rail car. Every other part of the machine stays in place, and the RAM just gets up on legs and travels. Add a third drill. My mining field here. It does help that this is using more liquids. Because while there is plenty of jank still present in liquid handling mechanics, it's a fluid. It distributes itself, mostly. That may be the phase of the thing where spreadsheets should be employed to gain a better understanding of cube ratios and look for the ways that different cube operations fit together. Though that is always dynamically complicated by the question of how much load are you putting on the machinery. And consumption of material varies drastically. One cube to the next. Cube is now back over here. And like in the right situation, you can have an arm steal the fuel cube back out of the furnace if it's idling. Maybe that simple edit that I can make. Well, no, otherwise this arm would just do that on its own. It has the necessary cube handling programming, so they're leaving the cube alone. Well, crystallize the gel. Always going to need more basic matter. Build one pilot crusher. So I can at least start creating some sand. Alright, hold on, let me scoop these. So the current top edge of the field is here. There's like a tile left over there. So for safety's sake, let's put it one there. Yeah. And power the whole thing up there. 4 drills. And those will take their bite out of the patch, and then I can move them along. many grains of sand approximate cube? They have potential. Take that out. Slam the crusher in there. That over there. Sand is an electric furnace recipe. Just more basic matter. Start prefabricating that. The 20-second wind up for each green card is quite a bit. Guess like with our don't have the enhanced science replication yet. Though that is also, yeah, that's when calcium enters the picture. Just for the moment, for balancing purposes, what is our throughput on this when it's running? 10 per second. Outlandish. Truly outrageous. Okay, the cube has been successfully ejected and is moving on. Metal is back on the menu. Sounds do I have available? For prototyping purposes, I should have a horn and a lamp. It needs to be wired up to show me the menu. There are a lot of sounds. And all of the notes. Just get that raw square wave. I could set up a heartbeat of the factory. Have to make a signal clock, but I could have like just every second a note hits that is whose pitch is the amount of steam we have left. Devices. And lamp. You are connected to data. What can you do? This color. And I think that's just built into what signal. Just use the color signals. Those pass that information along to the lamp. If I remember right. Alright, contemplative replication. Now underway. Uses the calcium, which is made by putting rare earth into the crusher. And alright, importantly, recipe 2. Or no, this requires the fancy rare earth. Alright, never mind. This is a retooling. My eyes had missed that. Alright, so now I need ore crushers to extract calcium. Turn the raw earth into the fancy earth. How fast does that crush? 40 in 4 seconds. So 10 per second in, and then the variety of materials out that must be sorted and appropriately processed. So in terms of converting raw, oh, no, this is still better in terms of metal output. Well, you're cutting the quantity of ore in half. Getting twice as much metal out of it, so that part of it is similar, but then you have the upside of generating rocks and calcium. And, science may have ways of dealing with rocks if necessary. Take water, add sand. You now have more water. Don't ask questions. That's water. Its volume went up. It's now more water. So can turn this around to my preliminary crushing over here. And this just knows based on what you put into it what needs to come out of it. So 3 filter arms. output. The left edge of this will need to come over a little bit. In due time. And the wonders of infrastructure. So pulling out, find Earth. Pulling out calcium, pulling out rock. One of these is now the thing that goes in the furnace. The quantities involved, though. Astounding. And yeah, these will need to be put somewhere. Box them for now. And okay, some things that do not directly handle the cube are still allowed to have productivity modules. get all of this excess loaded into the crusher. And even if this stalls, like, an hour from now, maybe 20 minutes from now, it'll still have made a lot of metal along the way, which will get a lot more material into circulation. It'll finish a lot of research chips. Waiting on the cube. All things permanently waiting for the cube. The much larger batch sizes involved in a lot of this. A dire impulse slowly traveling along my limbs. To take a bunch of combinators and, implement some state machines. Instead of having just this open-ended belts are passing things along as they arrive. The generic machine diagram would be first, an input buffer that collects input materials. Then, to just take the one combinator I have and have it stand for thinking happens here. So, collection of input materials. Mechanism that reads that input buffer and gives a thumbs up when the bill of materials for one cycle of the device are present. Then, when that is active, switches to loading mode, stops taking in new stuff, moves the input buffer into the machine. That's the machine cycle. When the output then arrives, in some kind of output buffer, a second machine detects that the output has been unloaded and accounted for, and it gives the thumbs up to put the machine back in waiting mode. There would be many states involved. In practice, one can create a lot of those states just by having belts and arms and so forth do what they do. There is some amount of behavior naturally encoded into their basic properties. But one could have more. No, hold on, there should be a tunnel there. At least basic material is now wildly abundant. We're waiting for metal. Metal is waiting for ore. Gonna have so much of it, though. Leave those limits where they are, actually, yeah. a second crusher set up at the temporary ore crushing facility. There you are. Thousand in, 1,000 out. And yeah, the higher batch sizes are kind of demonstrating pretty heavily that I could have a lot of these things very reasonably yield control of the cube by default. I would need even stronger arms. Okay, this crusher is actually keeping up with the drills. The second crusher would not improve things here yet. This simply is what it is. Concrete. Lab speed. Well, I could also start to get chemical stuff. Walls don't go anywhere, but walls do look nice. Really tie the place together. Learn about sand handling, though. I mean, soon we will know how to put together a proper Besselheim flask. For handling intelligent calcium. Science replication was in there. At some point. I can flip this to gel-based. Oh, and this is gross. This releases steam. This boils water innately in order to put the calcium into the card. Which is interesting. Steam just gets that heat. See what can be done. And for the moment, let's just create calcium bin. Do a manual calcium drop-off. So that is a lot of research worth of calcium. Steam levels are high over here because I'm keeping it pressurized with that pump. So until now, everything on this side of the line has been steam negative. Might need to create another little device to handle steam levels. I don't have any controls on this pump. I could just remove it. There. That relieves the pressure. Now the excess steam from this can just backflow into the power system. Alright, let's do a test firing cube. There, improved science replication. Doesn't take long to vent the steam. Looking to buffer 500 basic research. Current cube directions are just kind of generally improving, tuning the throughput of our existing machinery. Kind of looking for where I could create smarter modules. There are more pieces of the ecosystem to start fitting together. Basic power has remained good. Replication gel is doing wonders for basic matter. And crushed ore is piling up reasonably quickly. So the furnace is doing its thing. The furnace can now just go ahead and drop the cube back into the environment. Let it go about its cycle. Definitely some grounds to start refactoring the whole cube situation in general. Some of it's running smoothly. Guess I could wrangle together the construction mall now. Get all the necessary parts to exist. Then once it is built up once, it can be rearranged many times until it is something vaguely compact and elegant. No shortage of space to work with. Barely had to leave the starting area. So, to begin thinking backwards from fabricator. Wants motors, chips, and matter. And only basic motors, and basic motors are made of matter, which are made of tubes, which are made of matter. So we have that whole column there that's been implemented before. And then the addition of some circuits, which are made of wire, which are made of metal. For an assembler, not particularly concerned with throughput. Any output will suffice. So we've presupposed the existence of a belt of basic material there. Science continues to rumble on. Begin to think about oils. Boundless possibilities of woodsmithing. So, there's one half of the process. And chips are also made of basic matter, so chip assembler there. With a long arm passing across the aisle. decent core of a power setup. And reaching the point of needing metal. I'll be able to move this over here and have both raw inputs ready. So, circuit machine here. And the circuits also use rare earth. So, suppose the existence of a second conveyor line coming in. Alright, all of that has power. So cut. And collect. And I'll paste it over there. There we go. Assembler, assembler. Fabricator, fabricator. No concern for throughput. Simply that the work will get done. Same inputs for long and fast arm. With motor units, and then filter needs combinator. Which is circuits. Could also set up the arm machine over here. do a little bit to make it latch on to existing equipment. So filter arms will go here. So that the deciders can be passed across the aisle to them. Which in turn means speed arm here. Long arm here. Or something like that. Actually fold your output over to being down here so it's closer to the other arms. More motors, more tubes. The long arm machine can be right up against the speed arm machine. In this version of the setup, at least. And the machine springs to life. Arms, creating arms. more calcium buildup back here at the crusher. And of course all these rocks to deal with. Yeah, 100 of each. Seems quite fair. And the matter machine is running. In response to matter demand. Looking good. Now unraveling the riddle of wood. Belts, except for splitters, power lines, arms, assemblers. I could probably make a more compact infrastructure mall that doesn't have to double dip on tube and engine machines. Especially with all the tubes being for engines. And all the wire being for fabrication. My end products here use 4 things. Basic matter, basic motor, circuit, yeah, those are also circuit-based. Roll up this old belt maker. Create a successor. So, fundamentally, so all of those things together have two raw material inputs, basic matter and rare earth metal. Then everything else develops off of that. So, like, grab samples to label these lines. So, medium power, just matter in, product out. No further problems. Large power needs wire. And it's one of the few things to use wire directly. So, wire, which, like with standard wire, you get more wires out than you put metal in. So we suppose wire is arriving here. Well, metal is arriving here. Wire can then be dispensed out. Onto some sort of third line. Yeah, something like that. Cube, what are you up to? Cube sitting idle in the furnace for want of ore. Because the rocks have built up. Not sending those rocks anywhere else yet. Could be crushing those for sand and glass processing. No need to quarry my own rocks if they're a byproduct of something else. Disconnect this and this. Even these. Let that furnace keep going. Knows what it's about. So, additional crusher. And an electric furnace. Couple more storage crates, just kicking the can down the road here. No, not box. Belts. And box over here. For brick storage. And sand. Glass. Gonna have so many flasks someday. Yeah, for now, that keeps the ore flowing. Which keeps the metal going. Keeps all the machines clacking. While design continues of sort of long mall. On the matter input line. The tubes that make the engines. Those engines should then be put out onto an internal belt. Feeling fancy enough to just drop those directly onto the tunnel. That would mean there is basic motor available over here. Nothing else in my current build directly uses wire. Those wires should then be converted into chips. And the fabricator is building up nicely. So could also do some lane handling to make this a 50-50 belt. Make the other one also a 50-50 belt, actually. Yeah, that sounds great. Motors will just be put there. So only the near lane, the south lane of this will have basic matter on it. Similarly, I can set this up so that metal is on the... I could put metal on the lower lane and then the newly made circuit boards onto the far lane. Also need access to generic matter. Then starting here, anything that needs boards can exist. Got power poles both on here already. All three flavors of belt. all 3 flavors of arm. Which will mean combinator, or filter, or fast, long, just on its own. I'm going to cut the input line. Start reeling in this old machinery. It's already done good work. So, tubes. Engines, yep. Power poles. Belts. Arms, all kinds. We're made of circuit board, basic matter, and for current equipment that just leaves setting up fabricators themselves. So I could also get bulk plumbing storage. Just drop a box there. Be ready to accumulate some tubes. Alright, so we'll supply this with power. Not even gonna bother relocating it. It can work where it is. So, metal hookup test. Metal goes to wire. Wire goes to power. Metal is available along the length of the rig. Basic matter goes here. Where it makes tubes and motors, power lines, and belts. Some of which spill over into metal machine needs matter. Splitter machine has everything it needs. And properly clamp down the limiters on all these boxes. Drop to just 50 on each of the arms. No need to overstock. And you need your basic matter intake. Basic motor is the main bottleneck right now. Takes a while to build them. But once those arrive, everything is in place. Okay, better construction mall. Arc 1-1.2. Revision B. And I can throw all this excess material into the gears. It will receive a good home. Yeah, there we go. Everything has successfully output at least once. We got 5 labs going. There is some science output. The cube seems happy. Hmm. So many little noises that have been added over the ages. Every piece of equipment contributes to the soundscape. So, additional thoughts forming. Suppose that we had extending off however long in either direction. A tighter loop for when the cube is active, and then separate track off to the side for emergency returns. This is for sending it back to the boiler. No questions asked. Which can also be facilitated by an emergency turbine sitting over there. And over there. Entirely for the purpose of handling these, and then steam signal would activate these two arms and have them ready to grip any passing cube. With appropriate priority over local arms. The extra bit of space out front does help with miscellaneous factors. It gives room for the cube refresher, which I can just create a specimen of, rather than needing to use proxies. But in turn, so synthesizer were just right up against the belt. There would be a tiny bit of space for a breakout pipe on the upper port. It would remove the need for quick cycling. But it also presupposes not needing a refresher. could also use control wire once again. Not quite close enough. Have a long arm directly apply the cube. I'm getting back to my old setup that uses the inner track. And at some point we will have to start collecting the substrate. Yeah, well, I like the things that this arrangement did. Kind of leaning back toward the elegance of this setup. Close the loop for some more of these materials. The sand will be able to be dissolved into water and then boiled off as steam, leaving behind nothing at all. The words deep core ultra drill. Inspiring. Motivating. Yeah, I'm gonna need to start using the calcium, the byproducts from crushing ore. Create the need for additional steps. Nope, one of the drills is offline. Time to move you over here. I need to properly manage calcium levels to avoid Helvetica. Carving through this deposit at a pretty brisk rate. Yeah, this is another one that takes long enough to unload that it should just yield the cube by default now. Keep the cube in circulation, let it find other places to do work. The ore furnace is ready. Okay, I should raise your inventory threshold. That cubes may flow. So wood can also now be created in the appropriate wood reaction chamber. Calcium can go into concrete. Throwing it on the floor with extra steps. Calcium, stone, and sand. It's not a bad idea. Could always use more pavement. Kicks the can, like, geologic time down the road. There is a limit to how much map Factorio will generate. Eventually it will hit you with an edge, but it takes, like, multiple hours of high-speed rail travel. Like, dozens of hours. Someone has done the work of boring a tunnel to the edge of the world, building a high-speed rail line to the edge of the world, and then recording, riding the train to the abyss. So stop making glass here. Keep making sand here. Let's see, fabricator, what are the ratios for the concrete? Hazard or otherwise? Two, 4, and 6. And a water input. I'll have to make the ground tube as well. There, that might work out as a healthy calcium outlet. This probably will need additional rocks to supplement it, rather than relying purely on the slag from ore crushing. That would be a renewed reason to bring stone quarry into play. To be determined. And get a few of these onto the belt. Calcium and basic cards, which themselves can be made of calcium. Great intelligent calcium, which can then be stored in a Besselheim flask in a substrate. To what end? Who knows? Chemicals. Okay, that's part of the next tier of research chip. Let it begin. The pavening. Render the world smooth, cuboid form. So I could bring a belt of gravel over there. Go pick up some splinters so I can start doing load balancing stuff. The labs are happy. Okay, the way to do this, I think, it's via splitter, since I can also move the rock unloading arm over here. Input priority to the left. And load balance. Stylish. Don't even have landfill yet. Going to have to invent landfill. Also, glass being part of the workflow for the next research chip, that'll also give sand somewhere to go. Alright, how about I make a better circuit building array? What are the ratios? 2 matter, 1 metal, 1 wire. 1 second. 4 of those to 1 of these. At one side of a belt should be more than enough to feed them all. can't quite jump the entire thing in a single tunnel. Fair enough. Just go around. So here, a much more substantial chip-making machine that I could install over there. And then divert material accordingly. Yeah, slap that down there. So, common matter there. Metal there. And not quite enough room to make the jump all at once. But arrangements can always be made. Didn't include any power hookups in this design. Easy enough to set up, though. Yeah. That's more like it. Actually keep all 4 of those running at speed while supplies last. Naturally, the cube is at the rare metal furnace. Held up at the rare metal furnace for want of ore. Because the crusher is overfull on calcium. Cement plant on its own is not enough. It's a start. Calcium consumption should pick up once I start doing chemistry stuff. Bottled mines and so forth. So there's only so far that I can read ahead at a time to look for uses of calcium. Sulfur is its own thing. It's not used in making red circuit. It goes into vehicle fuel. Which of these had fancy engine in it? Stack arms are out there waiting. Rare earth, basic motors, circuits, grease. You need a bottle of consciousness for each construction robot. That's another place the calcium can go. And of course, once we're doing tier 3 research, that consumes calcium. Just reunite the glass inventory here. A lot of the upcoming things to do will be chemistry. And wood. Start making flasks. That compresses the stock a bit. A fine start. Never stop paving that main road. Okay, this is bottlenecked currently by the working time needed to make the concrete itself. I could double up on these. help. Need to fill in the middle later. That's an adequate paving. It's a start. And the chips are flowing. The gel is performing nicely. The cube cycles on gently through the night. The cube is at home in the machine.